A very warm welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Our topic of conversation, you must have a plan B, right? And we're talking from a citizenship and residency by investment perspective. From meeting many of you at the immigration exposition that we were at a couple of weeks ago, we understand that this is obviously a priority for yourselves. But this is an investment that you don't make in dollars and cents and look at growth and whatnot. You make it for your family and legacy, and to give yourselves freedom of choice and flexibility. And they're often referred to as Plan Bs because if things don't improve where you currently live, you can pack your bags, take your family, and move on. But first, establishing the right to live in another country. This planning, now more than ever, has to be equally as important or as much of a priority as how you insure yourself or how you retire comfortably. So I do have a couple of things. We will be taking questions towards the end. You will see that there's a Q&A box, which please drop your questions in there as and when you feel like it. We will try our best to get to it. If we do not, we'll collate them and send out a mailer afterwards. So rest assured your questions will get answered. And of course, it's always nice to get your feedback. So we will have a poll that's held through the course of this webinar. Please do answer them. It really helps us understand your particular position. Right. I'd like to introduce a couple of people that will be talking today. First off, we have Lawrence Reichard. Lawrence is the Managing Director for Holborn Africa. He has built a successful practice over the last 10 or 12 years of helping people externalize and protect their wealth. And he also chairs our investment committee. How are you, Lawrence?
Hello there, Jeff. How are you?
Yes, very, very well, thanks. Next off, we have Pablo Ostrich, who heads up Holborn Pass, a separate division of Holborn, and has built a very successful practice since we opened this a couple of years ago. Pablo, nice to see you again.
Hi, Jeff. Good to be here.
And finally, we have Shane Peacock, who is our resident specialist in this area, based in South Africa, that represents Holborn Pass as well. Lovely to have you gents on board.
Thanks, Jeff.
Right, I'm going to be handing over to Lawrence to talk through the investment case. Lo, over to you.
Thank you. So I've been around this investment world for quite some time, but the citizenship through investment world has only really been in the radar for us over the last, I'd say, 24 months, maybe 36 months. And I've been always resistant to it. I've always resisted it because the focus was always on residency. And I've always said to myself, but I'm a wealth manager. Pardon my French, but normally I don't give a shit whether someone gets residency or not. I care if my clients make money. So I was only able to get on board with citizenship by investment when the investment started making sense to me. So what I thought I would do is I would paint a story for everybody so that they can kind of see where my head is at without talking about residency or citizenship at all. So I would use Portugal just as an example for comparison for a couple of reasons. Firstly, since the residency program really started in Portugal, and it started with golden visas, it's kind of 10 years in the making. And also the other thing is South Africa's post-financial crisis decline is also roughly about 10, maybe 12 years in the making. So I want everybody to put into their head, just for a second, if they had R1 million 10 years ago. And let's assume 10 years ago, they decided to invest it. Now, either they could take their R1 million and invest it domestically in South Africa, or they could have taken their 10 million rand and externalized it and bought something abroad. So let's assume for a second that that person stumbled upon buying a property in Portugal 10 years ago, trading at around 10, just over 10 to the euro. The rand would have bought you 100,000 euros. So let's assume you bought a property in Portugal for 100,000 euros. Also, let's assume you decided to either buy property in South Africa at the same time, or maybe you decided to put it into the JSE top 40. That's also something you could have done. And let's look at your investment today. Well, if you look at your investment today, let's assume for a second you put it in the JSE top 40. You would have bought the JSE top 40 at 62,000. That is what it traded at 10 years ago today. Today, it trades at 59,000. So your million rand traded on the JSE, whether it's the all share or whether it's the top 40, your million rand would be a whopping 950 grand today, 10 years later. So you might say, no, hang on, I would have definitely bought property. Well, if you look at the housing index in South Africa, you would have made a 35% return. You would have made 35%. Your $1 million would be worth 1.35 million rand today, on average, if you take the housing index in the country. Conversely, let's assume that you bought a property in Portugal over the last 10 years. Well, you would have bought it for 100,000 euros, and the average price increase over Portugal over the last 10 years is around 5.5% per annum. I'm not talking about a specific concentration, I'm talking about across all the regions in Portugal. So today, that would be 168,000 euros. If you convert that back to rand today, that is 4.6 million bucks. So the best you could have done in South Africa is go from 1 million to 1.35 million, or you could have gone from 1 million to 4.6 million. And of course, it's not just that the property prices were outgrowing one another by 5.5% versus 3% a year. It's also that the rand declines long-term against its major counterparts, which is almost an economic conclusion that you can make indefinitely into the future. And where I get my data from is since the day the euro traded, it was 4 rand 60 to the euro, and then it became 8 rand, and then 10 rand, and then 15 rand today, 17.22 when I looked at it today. That is a trajectory which is not going to reverse. If you look at what happened in Portugal over the last 10 years, you can also understand why this trajectory is going to continue. And if you looked at South Africa over the last 10 years, you'll also understand why its trajectory is going to continue. So Portugal used to be labeled as one of the pigs: Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. It seems like only the Portuguese felt offended by that term, and they were the first country in Europe to settle its debt. They were 10 years ago at 17% unemployment. Round about the same time, South Africa was maybe 20 to 25% employment. Today, that figure is less than 6 in Portugal. And as of this morning, our statistics in South Africa said it's 34% employment. I think anybody on this group can probably agree we're probably staring closer to 40s or 50s when you really, really think about it. But you have 17 going down to 5.7 as of this morning, the latest data that came out last week, versus South Africa's unemployment data that has gone from 25 to 34%. Our currency has weakened dramatically over the last 10 years. Our economy is not growing on a real net basis. And if you adjust for inflation, it means you lost money on your property in South Africa. And if you adjust for inflation, you made money on your property in Europe. And you've got this enormous slide in terms of currency. If I said to you today, have I got a deal for you, Mr. or Mrs. Client? If you invest $1 million with me and 10 years later, I'm going to turn that into 4.6 million rand, would you then invest? And I think just about anybody who in their right mind would say, where do I sign? If then I said to you, oh, by the way, there's a couple of extra things that you might get with this, like the no need to pay for visas when you go to Europe, residency for your whole family, eventual citizenship. Oh, and by the way, to keep the brain active, you'll also master another language. You would tell me, where do I sign right now? I'll give you all my money. The biggest problem that most people have had with this whole Portugal idea is they think that they are buying residency when they forget completely what a power investment case that country is. If you ask me, Lawrence, do you own property in Portugal? The answer is yes. I also own property in Germany, and I also own property in the UK. I do it because of demand going this way and supply staying low. If you ask me, did you buy investment property in Portugal to get a golden visa? The answer is no. I've got a British passport. Me and my family don't need it. But I bought it all the same because the investment case is so incredibly sound. And as a result, I have Portugal in my property portfolio, and I will very, very likely double my money over a 10-year period, or close to. And I would take those winnings, if you look at it in South African rand terms, any day of the week over an investment in this country, property included. So I just wanted to sketch a view or a vision for people that the investment case is the thing that Holborn, us wealth managers, care about. Now, my colleagues, Pablo and Shane, they work in the past division of the business. They care very much about you and your family's legacy, and they care very much about the fact that you might need a plan B if the KZN shit hits the fan again across the country and people need to get out of here. So they care very much about that. But I just want everybody to realize the reason why you buy Portugal, you should be able to buy Portugal without the need for a program, and you still have a rock solid investment case. So that's the first thing that I wanted to say. Secondly, if you look at Europe as a destination for South Africans, and if you look at it from a taxation perspective, not a million miles away from a tax for tax perspective, if you look at it from a structure perspective, and what you can and cannot do in terms of a tax structuring perspective, very, very similar. So South Africans could probably live a very, very similar life in Portugal than they do here, similar tax treatment, with one huge difference is, and I'm pretty sure Shane or Pablo will come on to this, is the 10-year charge that you might have as a tax break. So for all of those reasons, everything tells you that from an investment case, you have an opportunity. And I think that's the biggest thing that people don't realize. And then you're going to have some people that say, I cannot afford it. And I'm going to say, I get it. Not everybody has a minimum of 280,000 euro or 5 million bucks or whatever the number is. Not everybody has that number. Okay, but some people has a smaller number. My advice would be still buy a property in Portugal, gear the rest, and let's get that property to grow, because over time, the equity plus the bank's equity will change that amount that could eventually get you in to a citizenship program, even if you didn't qualify for it today. So it's still something that I would advocate people do. So I'm going to hand over to Pablo, who can actually talk about the technicals about residency. But I want everybody to realize that don't forget the investment case for the residency or citizenship by investment. And if that case is good, and you can go through this program and you can make an excellent return, and you can cancel your depreciation on the rand, and you can hold a proper asset in hard currency one day, and you can get residency off the back of it. I mean, it is the world's biggest no-brainer, if you ask me. So I'll pass over to Pablo. Thanks, guys, for listening to me, and we'll see you with Q&A at the end.
Thanks, Lawrence. So I'm going to be doing the beginning part here. So you've now got the investment case, which is obviously extremely good, but what options do you have worldwide? So the opportunities that you currently have, what we deal with ourselves, we're probably looking at about 18 to 20 different countries. Now, South Africa, we're a little bit different because our passport, it's had better days. Currently, if you're looking at our South African passport, we can travel to about 100 countries visa-free. A majority of those countries are within Africa. So doing business, to being able to travel, being able to have education for your children becomes a little bit of an issue. So when our clients start to look at things like this, what is a plan B? How do we look at immigration? Whatever the situation is, we have the solution to be able to assist you. We don't necessarily try and fit you into one specific route. What we try and do is understand your requirements, and then from there, work it back to what will work best for you. So if we look at current offerings, we can basically split them up into two different sort of categories. The first category is the citizenship. This is a direct citizenship route. This gets you a passport within roughly between 4 to 6 months. South Africa, we've always got to take into account our wonderful home affairs, but generally you're looking at about 4 to 6 months for a direct passport. And most of those passports or countries that deal in that sector are within the Caribbean. The Caribbean offers you visa-free travel, anything from 140 to 160 countries worldwide. A majority of those include free travel into Schengen, or if we are looking at the UK, that's still an option there. Now, there are other countries within that sector which can help you out. If we're looking at the fastest way of obtaining EU citizenship, that would be Malta. Now, Malta's slightly a little bit more expensive. It's around about an investment of €1 million for a family of 4. And for that, you will get your passport in roughly about 14 months. So very, very fast route to be able to receive it, but there are alternatives. Now, if we're looking at the residency route, and this is primarily where most of our clients look at, we have a multitude. If you're looking at Europe as an example, every single country in Europe pretty much has one of these programs. If we look at the other side of the pond, as I would say, USA and Canada, we have the routes to be able to assist there. But today, primarily, because it's a South African webinar, we can basically say, well, we can say with confidence, actually, that majority, and I'm talking about 95% of all our clients are looking at Portugal. Now, the reason why people start to look at Portugal is because of the fact that we use it as a gateway. Once you have one physical passport in the EU, you effectively have 27 different passports because of the EU relation. All 27 member states allow you to live, work, and study within those countries. And if we compare neighboring countries, for instance, Spain and Portugal, Spain, you're looking at a 10-year route to citizenship, whereas Portugal is a 5. Spain is a 500,000 minimum, whereas Portugal is starting from 280,000. And then this minimum stay. So a lot of our clients don't necessarily want to leave South Africa. They want to remain as is. We have good climate, we have good work, we have good lifestyles here. So clients want to remain. And in that circumstance, Portugal only requires you an average of 14 days every 2 years. My advice, spend a little bit more time because you can, but 14 days every 2 years is the legal requirement. Somewhere like Spain, on the other hand, requires you to spend at least 6 months of every single year for the next 10 years within the country. So today, because we are sort of focusing on South Africa, I'm going to dwell a lot more into Portugal and what the requirements are and what different offerings we have. Now, what are the reasons why people are choosing Portugal? Now, obviously, we've brought up a few cases already. Lawrence has already pinpointed a few others, but basically it's a lifestyle. General low cost of living, the first world country, so rule of law is very, very strong. Location and accessibility. Parts of Portugal are considered as Mediterranean. The other parts are more European. So you've got a nice link between the two of them there. World-class education, both UK and English syllabuses are available, not just Portuguese-speaking schools. And then obviously a favorable tax system. Now, what Lawrence was mentioning earlier was what we call our non-habitual tax regime. The non-habitual tax regime If you can just move on to, thank you. So the non-habitual tax regime was something that was sort of brought forward in around about 2009. It was brought forward in the fact that they wanted to bring forward the world's best talent. They wanted that to move to Portugal, and for that they were willing to offer a benefit as far as the tax route goes. So it's important to also understand that you would need to talk to a tax specialist, but in majority of cases, what it means for you is for the next 10 years, you're looking at a reduction down to around about 20% tax base on all income earned within Portugal. This is generally for your higher income earners, as well as your specialized sort of positions, jobs. On a foreign source pension, it did change at the beginning of this year. It was 0, now it's 10% tax on all foreign-based pensions. On other types of income, sort of tax exemptions exist with foreign-based income from properties, as well as foreign-based dividends. So all your dividends are 0%. There's additional routes that we are able to do, so you can have an up to 6% reduction on capital gains, but also from an investment vehicle structure. Lawrence will be able to go a little bit deeper into that, but we do have routes that we can assist there. Right. But away from tax, I'm going to leave that to Lawrence. He's a lot smarter than me when it comes to that. I'll go mainly onto the Golden Visa. Now, the Golden Visa is a 5-year residency program that does lead to citizenship. Started in 2012, and the benefit of it starting in 2012 is we've already started to see people receiving their passports. Originally, it was a 6-year program, so 2018 people started to receive it, but obviously that's now picked up, and we're seeing a lot more of that sort of route happening. There's already been over 10,000 applications approved, so that's families that have already taken up the Golden Visas, and to be able to qualify for that, we would need you to be a non-EU national and have no criminal record. So Jeff, if you can move on to the next one. So yeah, non-EU citizens with no criminal record, you can include 3 generations of your family. So you can include your children, your spouse, as well as your parents. Now, children would need to be dependent, and how they prove dependency in Portugal is you need to be enrolled in full-time study at all periods of time during the Golden Visa. So children that are a little bit older, that are enrolled in university, can still qualify through that university enrollment process. If you're looking at parents, parents would need to prove dependency. If they are below the age of 65, generally living with you, if we're contributing towards their living, or if they're above the age of 65, dependency is automatically assumed. So there needs to be an dependency there. Thanks, Jeff. So all 3 generations can, and you can pass it down to newcoming spouses, if that be it. So if you are divorced and have a new spouse, we can pass it on to them. If we have new children in any kind of new relationship, we can pass it down to them. So we can add on at any point in time. Now, how do we qualify for the Golden Visa? As Lawrence has mentioned, property is generally our more popular route, and people understand it and see it and they can touch it. So they generally go for that. If we're looking at the overall sort of entry level into Portugal, I would say about 85% of all clients worldwide go into property. Property in the markets at the moment, as far as growth goes, we're looking at an average of about 6 to 7% growth going forward. If we look at last year alone, we're looking at just under 14% growth. So very, very good market to invest in. If we're looking at what qualifies though, if you're looking at a brand new property, and this is generally in your main city centers like Porto, Lisbon, Algarve, you're looking at 500,000 euro and above. If you're looking at a older property, so 30 years or older, and we are going to be renovating it, you can look at 350,000. Now, if we move either of those into what they call a less densely populated region, so a number of the areas in Algarve actually qualify for this, we can actually decrease that by 20%. So that's where the magic numbers 280,000 come in for a renovated property and 400,000 come in for a new property. Now, at the beginning of the year, there were a couple of changes that came about with the program. one of the main changes that came about was the fact that you cannot purchase property in your main city centers anymore that it is not commercial property. So your residential property is unfortunately now no longer, but it kind of works for our client base. If we look at what our clients are looking for, they're looking for a strong investment. They're looking at security as far as capital security goes, and they're looking at a longer term that they can hold those properties. So within that sector, we generally focus on your commercial side, and that generally includes hotels and apartment hotels. We try and take advantage of the tourism industry within Portugal, of which it is quite large. Other alternative options, and these also changed from the beginning of the year. I'd say probably the next one coming up behind property would be our fund option. It's a venture capital fund or a fund option. This investment now from the beginning of the year has moved from 350,000 to 500,000. And what we've seen is there's been a little bit of a pullback on that because obviously the changing in prices. But again, a little bit risk averse clients because these funds haven't unfortunately matured yet. Most of them only came into existence about 4.5 years ago. But for those of you that are interested in that, we also have those available. Couple of other things that are there, most of which, I mean, we have the scientific research. I think only one in the history of the Portuguese Golden Visa has ever been taken up. But we're more than welcome to have a chat with us. And if we have availability, we can assist you with any of those different routes. Thanks, Jeff. So now, how do we go about doing this? How does a Golden Visa happen? Pretty straightforward and simple. We do everything for you, so it's easy as. Myself and my team, we would work together. We'd obviously, once we've chosen an investment, whether it be property or any of the alternatives, we would then generally secure that investment with a deposit. We'd pay for your legal fees, and from there, we'll be able to start the process. Anyone above the age of 18 will require a tax number or an NIF number, as they say in Portugal. But from that point, for the main applicant, we'd be able to open up a bank account. Now, the bank account for this, for anything moving forward with the Golden Visa has to be domiciled within Portugal. They use it as a secondary due diligence process. And for us, we've got a number of different routes for you to be able to take advantage of, but we generally move forward with the banks that are offering the best client services. Once the account has been opened and validated as a Golden Visa account, we would then be able to start the process of purchasing your property. We transfer the funds from wherever they are in the world. It has to come from your personal name, so no third-party payments, but we would then be able to buy your property. Once we've had your property, we'll then be able to submit your application. Now, general documentation that we'll need for this: birth certificates for kids, marriage certificate for spouses, and anyone above the age of 18 would require a police clearance. Again, don't let that be a hindrance. I know our Home Affairs are a little bit testing at times, but we do have the partners in place to be able to assist and make that problem go away. Once we've submitted your application, we'll get your pre-approval. This is an approval in principle, and from that, we'll get your final biometrics. So all the process up until now, we don't need you to do anything, but unfortunately with the biometrics, we do. We need you to go across to Portugal, enjoy a nice holiday. While you're there, stop in, do your biometric appointment. We'll give you a date, your time to be able to do it. Unfortunately, the only thing we can't do, because we can't take your fingers with us. Once your biometrics have been approved, we'll then have your cards paid for and the cards will be issued. The issue date on those cards is when your 5 years starts. The benefit of those cards is massive. You are able to travel visa-free to all Schengen countries. So no more Schengen passports, visas, no more standing in queues, no more waiting months to be able to get it. That problem goes away. And it also allows you to live, work, and study within Portugal itself. You'll have the same rights as any Portuguese citizen. You just will not be able to vote or run for office or use their passport yet. Next one, please. Now, our clients generally are doing this to be able to achieve their citizenship. To be able to achieve your citizenship, you need to renew your Golden Visa every 2 years, so in year 2 and year 4. Again, straightforward process. While you're there, stop in. We'll give you a date, a time. You'll be able to go in, do your biometrics again, get your approval, and move forward. But to move to citizenship, little bit of an extra move. Generally, once you've reached your 5 years of holding your residency, you're now qualifying for permanent residency and citizenship. Permanent residency is ultimately for some of our clients that their passports don't allow them to hold dual citizenship. So somewhere like India, for instance, you can only hold one passport, the Indian passport. So clients have the choice of keeping as a permanent residence or moving on to citizenship. Now, majority of our clients prefer citizenship, and because of that, we would generally apply for residency, permanent residency and citizenship at the same time. To be able to get to that point, you need to have your residency for 5 years. You need to have proof that you've done your minimum stay of 14 days every year, well, every 2 years. On that point, my advice is always spend a little bit more time than the minimum 2 weeks for every 2 years. Go watch Ronaldo score some goals, enjoy the countryside, enjoy the beaches, just generally take part in their culture. But in addition to those, you would also need to pass an A2 language test. A lot of people get to this point and get a little bit nervous, but it's far easier than what you would expect. Most of our clients taking roughly about 6 months to be able to pass. I've got a lot of success stories, and it assists the family for going further on, being able to speak Portuguese, leads on to Italian, Spanish, whatever the case is there. So benefits all around. But once you have that citizenship, you now have the 5th best passport in the world. It's on the same level as the UK passport, which I currently have, 187 countries visa-free travel. But it's unfortunately for me, it's better than my passport because of the fact that it still remains within the EU. So all 27 member states become available to be able to live, work, and study within. So future children or your children that want to explore and travel and go work abroad, this is the opportunity for them as well. Thanks, Jeff. Now, just to recap the process fairly quick, at the moment, we're looking at about a 10 to 12 months for your golden visa application process. The government are working on this. When I originally started in the industry, we were looking at about a 6 months turnaround for the entire program. So a little bit longer, and we can blame our friend COVID for that, but the Portuguese government has addressed a lot of the problems, and we're seeing a turnaround, and things are starting to move a little bit quicker. In year 2 and year 4, we need to renew your golden visa. In year 5, we generally apply for your citizenship and permanent residency. And if all goes so well, in year 6, you should be getting it. Okay. Now, from this, obviously, I've gone through your detail of the program itself, but on to something which is a little bit more exciting. I'm going to introduce you to Pablo Ostrich. He's going to go through our properties, give you a little bit more insight into that. Pablo, over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Shane. So I guess, well, I'm going to introduce 3 properties to you. One of the €500,000, one of the €350,000 category, and one of the €280,000 category. But it's just important to remember that residential property no longer qualifies for golden visa in Lisbon, Porto, or the Algarve. These are the 3 main cities, and that's the only places we really would look at to make a solid real estate investment. So what does qualify are commercial properties. What's commercial? So offices, retail, hotels, and apartment hotels. And apartment hotels or touristic apartments are the closest thing to residential property that you can find, and that is typically where the demand is. Now, I've personally met with 25 different developers in Portugal, and the 3 options that will be presented today are the best that we have found, the best in each category. So we have something for everyone. You know, if you invest a little bit more money, normally you make a better investment at the €500,000 because you can buy new build property, like the one showing on the screen. At the €350,000 category, that's a building that's 30 years or older that then gets refurbished by a developer and then rented out. And then that's in Lisbon. And then the 280 category, that would be in the Algarve, but it is also a refurbishment. So we'll start then with the Royal Óbidos. So we started selling this property last year. It was fully delivered and fully built last year. As you can see, so at the back there is a 5-star hotel, and then here more closer to us as we're looking at the picture would be the serviced apartments. Okay, and in these little villas there, you've got 1-bedrooms and studios. All the apartments face the sea. Okay, so they've all got a beautiful sea view, and they also face the golf course, which was designed by Severiano Ballesteros, and is actually where the PGA golf tour is played every year in Portugal, is on the golf course next to here. So this resort is about 45 minutes north of Lisbon, okay, next north of Lisbon airport, and it's 5 minutes away from Nazaré. Nazaré is very famous for having the biggest waves in the world. So maybe you've seen some crazy surfer types that surf around there, these gigantic waves. Jeff, if you could click onto the next one. So I've actually been to the Royal Óbidos Resort. I've had a coffee literally just there at the end of that swimming pool, and it's even better in real life. There's about there's another 4 5-star hotels in the area, and golf is very popular all year, but also because they have this lagoon. People visit there because it's warmer than the sea, so people go there all throughout the year. So essentially there's 2 options. So the studios, we have about 10 left out of the 64. And there's a special offer on the studios where, because you have to invest €500,000, and each studio is worth €350,000. So instead of getting or spending €700,000 of your money, you could spend just €500,000, and then you wouldn't have the rent for the next 6 years. There's 2 very special features about this property. One is that you get the rental up front for the entire 5 years, okay, which works out at just over 26%, okay, net, that is. So if you're buying 2 studios, instead of spending 700 and then getting the rental, you just buy them at €500,000. In the case of the 1-bedrooms priced at €500,000, to fund a €500,000 property, you would only require of your own capital €368,000. Okay. Now, the property will be naturally rented out, but you can stay there 6 weeks per year for free as part of your the contract, and enjoy Portugal and enjoy your property while you're there on holiday, or maybe give it to a friend so they can stay for a couple of weeks. What's very attractive as well about that property, and I'll just finish with that, is that there's an optional buyback, meaning that the investor can choose in year 4 if they want to enforce the contract for the developer to buy the property back in year 6 at the original price of either €700,000 or €500,000. So that's the Royal Óbidos Resort, which again is a 5-star hotel, 45 minutes north of Lisbon, and qualifies at the €500,000 category. This next one is called Passos Manuel Touristic Apartments in Lisbon. If you know Lisbon, it is about just under a kilometer, or just under 2 kilometers away from Avenida Liberdade, which is the most expensive street in Lisbon. And this property is over 30 years old. It was a commercial office building, and it's been refurbished, renovated to become 72 apartments that are just touristic apartments. People who come in there, staying for 1 week, 2 weeks, and managed by similar to an Airbnb type solution, but managed by one owner. So from the 72 apartments, 57 are studios and 15 are 1-beds. The 1-beds are priced at 400,000, and the studios are priced at 350,000 euros, which is the absolute minimum for golden visa purposes in Lisbon, and assuming it gets refurbished. What's very attractive about this property is that you get a guaranteed income, which is paid monthly once the property is renovated, which will be about a year and a quarter, more or less. And you get a guaranteed rental return of 3.5% for 15 years, which roughly works out at €1,000 a month of passive income coming in, for 15 years. The property includes the furniture and the management. You can stay there 1 week per year for free, so that when you go to Portugal for the golden visa, you can stay in your property. And what's truly attractive about this investment, even though there is no buyback, you know, chances are you might not need it because, as Lawrence was explaining, the capital appreciation in Lisbon is you know, one of the best in Europe. There's, you know, increasing demand and very, very limited supply. This is one of the few, you know, buildings that will be looking brand new after the refurbishment. So it also has parking, which helps to increase the price of apartments significantly, as it's very tough to park in central Lisbon. And it also includes the furniture, everything, as I mentioned, is all included in the price. So this would be the best option at the 350. I believe there's only 28 apartments left out of the 72. And if we can go to the next slide, Jeff. Okay, this one is a bit of a pre-launch. This is a property that's exclusive to Holborn Assets. And this qualifies at the 280,000 euro category. And it's a 4-star apartment hotel in Alvor, which is next to Portimao in the Algarve, if you know the Algarve. And we're pre-launching it. We will likely be launching it officially in October, but we can look at you know, pre-bookings already. And this hotel this is how it looks like today. Okay, so this is I think there's 160 rooms, and you know, it's like a 10-minute walk to the beach. And here, so there's 160 rooms, but there's only 80 units. So every individual unit with an individual title deed contains 2 individual studios, which is great because you can get 2 different revenue lines from people who are coming to stay on holiday. So the hotel has been in existence for, you know, roughly over 30 years. And you know, the new owner is going to invest considerably into the hotel. There's going to be like 3 exterior pools, you know, the swimming pools, tennis courts, volleyball courts, interior pool, you know, everything to bring the hotel up a level. I didn't mention, but it's important to say that in the refurbishment option, the price already includes the refurbishment. So, you know, if the price is 285,000, maybe 15 or 20,000 euros will go to refurbish the interior of the apartments. Finally, there's the similar 2 conditions to the Royal Óbidos Resort. So you should look at this as a 6-year investment in most cases. When you get your passports in year 6 of your permanent residency, you can enforce the buyback, meaning you would get the 285 or 290,000 euro value if you just want to, you know, get your money back and then, you know, invest into something else. But here you also have the option of keeping the property. You could live in it. You could also sell it on the open market and obtain you know, the capital appreciation. So there's an option that you have, but it's good to have that buyback in any case. And then finally, 2 weeks after we buy the property, which is usually in month 4, let's say, from when we start the golden visa, the developer will pay you the rental return for the entire 5 years, which is 15%. Okay, so it's 3% for 5 years, so a total of 15% paid up front. And this will typically fund most of the costs associated with the golden visa. So, you know, legal fees, taxes, golden visa cards are usually can be paid by this rental return. So in many cases, depends on how many applicants, because the more applicants, you know, the more expensive it gets. But typically up to a family of 3, maybe 4, you know, you could get it all done for roughly 300,000 euros, assuming the property is 280,000 euros. So, so we've got options for you know, for different people who want you know, different real estate investments. And Jeff, I'll leave it over to you to open the floor up for questions.
Thank you, Jens. That was most insightful. I think we've spoken about a huge amount of priority and benefit to people here, not only in the investment case, but also in the general properties and the lifestyle that one can achieve in Portugal. The polls were very interesting. Thanks very much for everyone that participated in this. If you still want to get your answers in, that'd be great. It's no surprise that, you know, if we were to sort of dot your line of faith and your confidence in South Africa to improve, You know, let's say 0 is Venezuela, it's Zimbabwe. You know, it's got all the economic indicators of crime, corruption, things going backwards. Or 10 being Dubai, Singapore, possibly even Portugal. You know, we've asked you where you sort of find yourself, and a resounding 60% have sort of said round about a 2 and 3. So I think that really talks to the value of these conversations. So Lawrence, Shane, Pablo, that was really great. Most of our attendees today are looking at future planning. So immigration is definitely on the cards. And finally, again, you know, looking at why you might want citizenship abroad. The majority of people are saying a foreign passport, legacy onwards to their kids, give their family going forward more opportunities outside of the borders of this country. So I'm going to end the polls there, and we are bang on time, gents. So thanks for keeping to that. There are a couple of questions before I let you go. There's 1 or 2 that have come through over WhatsApp, and I've got a couple here in front of me. So let's just close that. Right. The first one is, Chris, thanks for this. I read recently that the EU Parliament Commission have criticized these programs or attempted to end or limit them. Do you think this is a material risk to take into consideration? Oof. Pablo, I'm going to throw you in the deep end, if you don't mind. I think the question there really talks about, if they sign up today, you know, will their program and their application be in good standing and valid in the future?
Yeah, so I guess it's important to understand that, you know, these programs could close down at any point, right? Just this year, we saw the UK program that closed down. The American EB5 program increased by $300,000 overnight. Cyprus had a program a couple of years ago, 2 million euros in real estate, and that closed down as well. So as long as you've applied while the legislation still stands and the program is still in place, you're safe, okay? The Portuguese government or any EU government can't legislate retroactively. They can only legislate going forward. So even though the Portuguese government haven't stated that they want to end you know, the program, there are factions on the left that very much do. You know, let's say the communists, you know, want to look at ending this program, and also the EU is looking to put pressure on member states to either cut down on these programs or you know, ban them completely. Is there a date when that will happen? No. It is in the EU Parliament, in the EU committee. It has been discussed. Could it be that they impose a tax on these countries that offer the golden visa programs? Could be. Would those countries then pass that tax over on to investors? You know, you would imagine so. So yeah, if you do want a plan B, the time to do it is now, rather than wait and then the program is closed.
Great, thanks, Pablo. Lawrence, here's one for you. With this program in mind, what about my tax position? Just want to understand what's been said here. What about my tax position? If I apply for this, does anything change for me from a South African perspective? Lo, I think this is definitely one for you, just on a planning perspective.
No, nothing changes, because we are taxed as residents of South Africa on a worldwide capital gains and estate basis. So if you buy a property in Portugal and you make a capital gain in Portugal, whatever you didn't pay there, you pay capital gains in South Africa. If there is an income that's derived in Portugal, whatever you didn't pay in tax there, you'd still owe this side. So you are net in no different position from a tax perspective. It's different when you move there, though, but I don't think that was the question. So if you buy assets in any other country, they are treated as if they were in South Africa from a tax perspective, and it is also not advisable to hold these types of properties in things like companies and trusts, because you need to be the owner of that asset. So you hold it in your name just as you would a property in South Africa, but it doesn't materially change anything from your tax position, either positively or negatively.
Great, thanks for that. Shane, maybe here's one for you. There's quite a few questions coming in about the non-habitual residency. Talking about the criteria, as there's one question around So it looks like what qualifications does one need? Is it for particular professions? The other question is about the timeline that you have to spend in Portugal. Is there a physical time stay that you need to be there? So I think it's all about NHR. So if we could maybe just dive into that a bit more.
No problem. So initially, to be able to apply for the NHR, you need to have an address. So you need to have a physical address in Portugal, and you need to be living there. So you need to be earning an income within the country. And for that, you'd obviously already be in their tax system, their social systems. And then from there, you'd get the benefit going forward. But again, you've got to take heed of the fact, as Lauren said, it depends where you're going to spend your majority of time. So you can't go across there, dial in the non-habitual tax regime, leave for 8 months of the year, because your tax base will move from there. So it's important to understand you will need to be there for the next 10 years for at least 184 days per year to take advantage of that tax system. But it does relate. First of all, you need an address, and secondly, you need to apply. But the rest of it's pretty much straightforward. As long as you're there, you get the advantages. It is geared towards more sort of specialized industries, so lawyers, doctors, accountants, engineers, those type of things. But again, it's depending on what type of income it will be applicable.
And footballers and wealth managers, I would imagine, high on the
pretty
list.
much. with the fact of foreign source incomes, I mean, a lot of the clients have property portfolios, and the income from there is tax free. Share portfolios, dividends are tax-free. So there's multiple different routes that you can take advantage of. It doesn't have to just be income from a job or anything like that.
I think also on the tax piece, most countries with Portugal will have a double taxation agreement. So, you wouldn't be too concerned about getting nailed twice. It's either going to be where you're currently resident or if you've moved over to Portugal. So I hope that has answered your question, Anonymous. Another anonymous question coming in. If one exercises the buyback option on a property, must that money be reinvested in Portugal, or could it be taken out? What will happen to the residency status in each case? Pablo, maybe one for you.
Sure. So after 5 years of having the temporary residency, which is the golden visa, i.e. residency linked to an investment, you're allowed to convert that temporary residency into a permanent residency or a citizenship. And at that point, you can sell that property or exercise the buyback, and you're free to do with that money whatever you want. You could buy a home to live in Portugal, or if you prefer Italy, for example, you could go and live in Florence and buy a property there. So you've got all the options once you have the citizenship, let's say in year 6.
Right. We've got one about the US. Anonymous coming through just said, on the citizenship index, they saw something about the US. Can we assist with the EB5? And what is the cost for that? Shane, maybe, between you and Pablo.
Okay, so I mean, with the US, there's a few options that we can take part in. We've got the E2 option, which we'd be going through another country. It's more of a non-immigrant visa, but we do have the EB5, and we do have the products and the investments to be able to do that. You're looking at an $800,000 investment. It's children up until the age of 21, and obviously your spouse. Now, that investment would last for 5 years. After 5 years, you receive your funds back. The fees in general, you're looking at around about $100,000.
Sure, pricey program. I hope that answers the question there. Lawrence, here's one for you. We can't afford property at the moment, but really agree with your comments around international investing. Is this something that Holborn can help, particularly with my husband's pension?
Yes, is the answer to that. As I said when we started, we've started our lives as wealth managers, and we manage pensions all day long. We manage assets domestically, we manage assets abroad. And my foremost advice would be, let's get together and do just a warts and all view on what things look like, because there is a way that one could often extract capital from one avenue to generate capital into another avenue. there's multiple ways to look at the cat before you skin it, so to speak. The answer is yes, one can help, but you have to sit down with someone. You have to do a proper analysis on their assets, and you have to look at the long-term investment trajectory and what you're looking to achieve. But yes, the answer is definitely we can.
Great. And Pablo, just maybe one for you. We've got another question coming in saying, if these programs are so popular, why is it that other European countries haven't introduced them? I think you've in part answered quite a bit of that, but maybe just rehash that.
Well, there's a lot of countries that have introduced them. So I'm from Spain. Spain has one. Portugal has one. Italy has, they don't have a real estate based one, but they do have a, like a business or a startup based one that requires a level of investment. Greece has one. In Germany, there are certain areas there are certain federation or states, let's say, that also have these kind of entrepreneurial / business programs. UK has one, although it's closed in February. Ireland has one for 1 million euros. Malta has one still. Malta has two, one for citizenship, one for residency. So yeah, most countries actually do have one.
I think even Austria got one for 2 million euro.
For a very small percentage of people. I think a good leading question onto that is whether there is a similar non-habitual residency that might apply in some of these other European countries with these programs. I don't know if that's something that you might be aware of, Pablo.
It does depend, and it is changing a lot as these countries are competing to attract this international wealth. Italy recently introduced one. I think you pay like 100,000 in taxes, and that's it, euros, and then you don't pay anything else on worldwide income. So in Spain, there's one as well. When you come here, so there are a few, but the Portuguese one really is the most successful one. It's brought the highest number of people, in particular from Europe, to actually go and migrate to Portugal. So instead of paying 45% tax in the pension in Sweden, they end up paying like 5% or something along those lines.
Okay, we've had one late one drop in here. Is this service only provided to South Africans? This particular person's not a citizen of South Africa, but they're permanent res, and they're a citizen of Botswana, and they'd like to understand if there's advice and property solutions that we have. Shane, maybe just touch on the program side, and I think maybe the second part of the question is for Lawrence around giving financial advice.
From what we've seen of late, we've dealt with a lot of some Southern African countries, so not necessarily just South Africa, but my job is to obviously look after Africa as a whole. Today, primarily, we've been talking about South Africans because that's the bulk of our audience at the moment. But we do work with other nationalities, and we've got a lot of experience from that point of view. That's sort of my side of things. Lawrence, you want to go for the next slide?
Yeah, so to honest question, yes, we and to mirror what Shane said, absolutely, we assist clients all over Africa, and actually there are countries that are north of South Africa that are now becoming bigger players than South Africa, Nigeria in particular. So yes, we help people from all jurisdictions. But bizarrely, Americans are applying for Portuguese visas all day long, so they are also being catered to. So yes, we can help with the investments that you have domestically, especially if you need to convert those assets. We can help with the FX. We can help you into the other programs, and we can help with whatever domestic investments. But as always, sit down with one of our wealth managers, book an appointment. Let's look at what's available, what the values are, where we can assist in terms of piecing the whole puzzle together for you.
Great, gents. I think that's all we got time for. We're on the hour, so I'd like to thank you for your insights and what you had to say. Thanks to everyone that joined us. I hope it was insightful, and we obviously hold many of these webinars. Please keep in touch with us. We'll be reaching out to you to have these sit downs, because bespoke advice is really the only way you should go about these things. Have a wonderful day further. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure.